video. Thank you very much for hitting that like button when you come into the live stream. The algorithm will pick up the YouTube video to spread it around for more people to join in. And it is a beautiful day here in Astoria. It's amazing. Yesterday it was kind of gray and a little bit dreary. Today, beautiful, sunny, very light breeze, absolutely beautiful, calm river out there. Maybe I'll give you guys a shot of the river here at the end of the stream. I want to talk a little bit about how the idea of the Fed losing control. And this is something that I find very interesting because most people look at the Federal Reserve as far as their ability to control inflation and them like not being able to bring inflation back down to their target. They think of that as the loss of control. Right? So like inflation was running rampant. It was a problem, right? They were raising interest rates to bring the inflationary scenario down, and they cannot bring it down in a meaningful fashion to their 2% target. They're just above it, and they can't achieve it. And this is where a lot of people are really under the impression that they lost it. Like they lost control. They can't maintain it. They're screwing it up. Just look at all the problems that the economy is facing. And I would agree with most of the sentiment out there that people have because most of it is pretty factual and apparent, and evident out there. However, what it is that the Federal Reserve was attempting to do is far different than what everybody thinks of the monetary policy. And this is something that we discuss regularly on this video. In fact, somebody had brought it up yesterday saying that you just repeat yourself over and over again. But I don't. Each one of these videos, although sounds similar in a lot of the forces that we talk about, each one of them is very different in how it is that we are supposed to conduct ourselves in a daily fashion. You think about it, like every single day, we are making decisions that are going to impact our future, whether or not we decide to start that business, buy that house, invest into that particular company. Everything that we do every single day impacts our future, the thoughts that we have. And so understanding the monetary policy in a position from what it is that the Fed is trying to strategize, right? Not what everybody says the Fed screwed up or whatever, but exactly what it is that the Fed is communicating, and understanding it from that fashion is the only way that we can position ourselves to be the most appropriate, right? There's no other way of going about it. And so, yeah, we have to look at this stuff literally daily. Right? And that's what I do. I go and I find these speeches coming from the Federal Reserve talking about monetary policy. And one came out this morning from Michelle Bowman, and that's the reason why you see her name. Like if you type in Fed Bowman and then hit the news feed on your Google search or whatever, it's just like endless articles from Michelle Bowman talking about how she feels that interest rate hikes are more appropriate for the future, right? It's because that is them conducting their monetary policy, is to get that narrative out there. In fact, if you go and you think about some of the theories that I have talked about as far as the monetary policy coming from the Federal Reserve and how it is that they use credible threats and that forward guidance and the perception of the markets and where it is that they feel that interest rates are going in the future and now that impacts the economy. When you think about it in this fashion and then go and start reading some of the monetary policies that are coming from the Federal Reserve, at least from these speeches that they give, you can see it clearly within these speeches, exactly how it is that they are conducting themselves, using that forward guidance, right? I mean, she straight up says it, the forward guidance and how powerful it really is. Another one, see, this is how you know. This is the thing. Like they will never admit it straight up, because if they admit it and come out and talk about it, then it won't work, right? The whole monetary policy thing. You really have to understand it for yourself. And it's not stated in a single speech. I've found the speeches out there that come pretty close to giving you an idea of where it is that they are going with this, with the interest rates and inflation and all the things that are happening out there. If you take all the speeches into consideration, yeah, then you can see all the parts and pieces and you can fit them together. But by reading one speech, which does talk about the monetary policy, it is so confusing if you don't already know about some of the other aspects of the monetary policy. One of them, for example, is she talked about in the speech about how monetary policy was easing since the end of last year. And I'm thinking, well, wait a minute, say that again? monetary policy has been easing since last year, was in like a less tightened position. And I'm thinking, when did that happen? They kept interest rates elevated. The unwinding of the balance sheet really didn't start occurring until now. There was no time at all in the last 6-7 months up until just recently has the Federal Reserve done anything differently than it did the 6 months earlier than that, right? Like, at the end of last year, they had interest rates elevated and they were sitting on their hands. There was no change to policy, but yet she admits there was an easing to monetary policy. When did that happen? There was no change to the Fed's interest rates or their balance sheet, right? It's because she was talking about the perception that the markets had. And because they believed that there was 7, 6, 12, 1, 4, 8 interest rate cuts, it wasn't a matter of if but when and how many there were going to be, that feeling that the markets had at the end of last year started to ease policy, even though the Federal Reserve didn't do anything. And she admits it in that speech. But you have to recognize it, because you might read right over the words in her speech and not even see it in there, right? But if you are aware, if you know about the credible threat theories, if you understand that that was the monetary policy that they intended on using, going all the way back to Ben Bernanke's speech talking about deflation and how to prevent it from ever occurring here, it is clear. You can see it just clear as can be. You know? That's why I encourage everybody, like I put the link down in the description, go and read the speeches. However, it is going to be very difficult if you're not already understanding the strategy from monetary policy strategies for a low neutral interest rate world, which was given back in November of 2018. There's a Powell speech from August of 2020, August 27th of 2020. Very important speech. We covered that speech in a members only live, or in an open, not even a members only live stream. We covered that speech in a public review, so that people would understand what it is that I am doing with the members only live streams to break down these speeches. Like if you haven't seen that speech that we did, I think it was on Saturday, right? Where we broke down Jerome Powell's speech from August 27th of 2020, describing what monetary policy was going to be like for the next 5 years, right? Doesn't matter the administration, right? Didn't matter the administration when he gave the speech, when they wrote the policy. Okay. This is the way to understand it, is to break these speeches down word for word. And we're going to break Michelle Bowman's speech down tomorrow in a members only live stream as well, tomorrow afternoon, probably into the evening sometime, West Coast. I encourage everybody to please join the channel. It's $1 a month to be a member of the channel. It doesn't cost you anything. It's incredibly informative. I put a lot of work into it. It's literally $12 a year, $120 for a decade's worth of information that you will totally be able to use for your own personal positioning of being in the best possible place that you can be, because nobody else is going to know what it is that you need like you know. And now this stuff is complicated. It's hard to break it down. It's hard to understand it. But when you start going into the speeches and start breaking them down and communicating them within a live stream like I set up with a handful of people. I mean, the members are up to over 500 members to the channel, but generally these live streams have 30 to 40 people in them. You can really ask a question and get a lot of really good responses, like a lot of different perspectives. All right, and this is the way we do it. This is the way we figure it all out. Most people out there have no clue about what it is the Fed is up to. Most people are under this impression that the Fed is going for a 2% target, right? Like once they get inflation down to 2%, then they have achieved their goal. That's not it. That is not it. We know this. People who have been following me on my channel know that it's about average inflation targeting over time, meaning that they may never ever be at 2%. They could be at 1 or 3 on the inflationary scenario forever and still achieve their goal of 2% over time. Never once ever being at 2%, never once being at their goal, because they don't have a target. It's average inflation rate over time. And that's very important, because appropriate monetary policy is to have inflation moderately above 2% for some time. No definition of moderately and no definition of some time. All right, so that was the 10 minutes into the video. I just want to make sure that everybody is aware that Michelle Bowman is out with another speech talking about current monetary policy. I went and perused the speech, just kind of briefly went over it. I found some of those points, like, like I was saying, how she is basically admitting that monetary policy has been easing since last year, even though they didn't do anything different with their monetary policy except for the narrative that went out there and people believing that interest rate cuts were coming to the future. That's the only difference that had happened, and that is the tool that they are using, and she straight up admits it by saying that. And so you can go and find that for yourself in that speech. But again, these things are very difficult. So if you want to really understand that speech in, a group setting where we really break it down word for word, join the channel and be part of the live stream tomorrow in the members only live stream. And I'll set up a link for it too. I'll probably do that this afternoon. All right, let's take a look at some of these questions we got going on out here. All right, so we still got probably about another 20 minutes. Go hit that like button. We got 320 people watching right now with 62 likes. Go hit that like button and we'll get this thing spread around for more people to join in. All right. My plants look so happy today. Right on. Hello. All right. Borrowing is still too cheap. Price of shelter and transportation has to decrease. Simon, hello from deep East Oakland. Right on. Is someone has issues and thinks they're just repeating yourself, they can just go and listen to other voices and start their own podcast. Well, thank you, Richard. I appreciate it. No, I think that is like, they were just looking for something new, something like, really profound, something that really changes. This stuff is boring. Like, I mean, I would love to make it exciting and like, hey, man, the end of the world is coming. You got to hurry up and get your money out of the bank and buy gold and do all the, okay. All that stuff, great. We all heard those kind of things, and we can really get entertained and lit up by it, especially if somebody has a lot of like, they put a lot of drama and impact into it, but that's not helpful. Right? That's not helpful, useful information. What's helpful, useful information is literally breaking this stuff down, is breaking these speeches down, and it is boring. It's not exciting, right? It's not something that you get to go and like, hey, let me, tell you about all this really crazy, profound things that are happening out there, It's just like, some of it might be pretty interesting and profound, but for the most part, it's dull. It's the Federal Reserve monetary policy. Like, how exciting could it possibly get, And too many tablet kids growing up. Blue-collar workers will be the next richest class. Cash was backed by gold then in the petrodollar. Now it's backed by nothing. Well, that's not true. It's backed by the promise to pay. UE, let's go. Right on, P-Nice. Nice to see you here. Literally nobody tells us the truth about economics like UE. Thank you, Richard. Yeah, and and this is the thing, like, it took me a while to figure this out because really what it came down to. Oh, my buddy is out here, my crow buddy. There you go. What it really comes down to is like most people are trying to gain, like, give me this information so that I could go and do something with it in a different fashion of like just trying to position yourself. They're more like, I need this information because I'm looking for the next stock pick, or I'm looking for the next, whatever. And when you do that, then you're searching for information in a direction. I need the next piece of information that tells me how silver is going to go to the moon, or how Bitcoin is going to go to the moon, or how, this particular stock is going to do so much better, or whatever, or the it's not going to do well, and there's going to be a huge crash. And everybody is kind of like anticipation of that kind of like information. And so when they're searching to do videos, I'm talking about like the other YouTubers out there, when they're searching to do videos, they're searching for information that confirms this bias that they already have, right? Because they already have like this narrative going. Maybe it might be a fear-mongering narrative, like a housing market crash or a stock market crash, or the total monetary system crash or something, and then they look for evidence of it and then present things like the BRICS nations as being like, taking over the dollar, or they show how like US treasuries are getting dumped, so you need to get into gold, and they have like all these things that they continue to push. And none of it, like, I can honestly say, like, when you watch it, none of it is lies. Like, none of it is really like, they're not lying to these people. Like, they have, it's evident, it's truth, it's facts. But now, is it being presented to you in a way that is actually reasonable for internalizing to then make appropriate decisions for yourself? Yeah, maybe on some level, there's little nuggets in there that you could take out and say, hey, that's useful stuff. I can use all these parts, all this outlandish, craziness about how the New World Order is coming down to take my life and I won't own nothing and be happy about it or something of that nature. Like, that stuff doesn't scare me. Like, I don't have any use for any of that information. You'll eat bugs and kind of things. This is like, I don't need to invest my time and effort and energy into something that I will not be able to do anything about. Like, if I don't want to eat bugs, I will eat chickens. I will eat eggs. I will go and fish out there in that river. But you may not have a choice. If you're eating a protein granola bar or something like that, you very well could be eating bugs, right? And you may not have any other choice in that matter if you're going to be eating processed anything out there. So, it's just better to understand it for what it is. I don't want to eat it. I don't really have like any other choice in the matter of what gets done out there as far as the economy and corporations and all that does, but I can certainly pay attention to what it is that I'm doing and what it is that I'm positioning myself into doing. And if I don't want to eat bugs, I better figure out a way to raise chickens and eggs, right? Right on. 378 people watching. Nice. We're 16 minutes into this live stream. Go hit that like button. We're still going to be out here at least for another 15, 20 minutes. I'm so glad you go over it several times. For a guy like me that's just started following you, enjoyed your group, I need to hear it again and again to understand it. Thank you. Yes. Thank you, Santa Corky, I like the name. Thank you very much. That is exactly right. And so now by hearing this stuff on a regular basis, like by again, my reiterating it, going to these speeches, I'm bringing it up again. The more you hear it, the more you think about it, the more that you understand. And I mean, outside of just calling it straight up what it is, it's essentially like a brainwashing, right? The more you hear it, the more you see evidence of it, the more it hits you emotionally, the more it becomes a belief, right? Now, I'm not trying to brainwash you. However, you have been brainwashed already. That's the problem. So now you need to rewash it into the correct position for the appropriateness of what is actually happening out there, because none of the things that you heard, like all the stuff that you hear on the mainstream media, is not lies. That's the problem with it, right? It's facts, it's evidence, it's everything that they present to you, but they presented it to you in a way that you have received it, gave it meaning that is inappropriate to the actuality of the events. And that's the problem with it is, right? It's like, that's how propaganda ends up working. So now when I see the evidence of it clearly that they're trying to hide, then yes, I have to come out here and repeat it over and over again so that you see it, that you hear it, so that you go and internalize it and then go find that evidence for yourself that says, yeah, the things that what everybody else is believing is crazy and I'm the only one who gets it. And then you will be truly there, right? Because if you get it and everybody else says you're crazy and you can see the evidence within their own statements and you try to explain it to somebody and they're like, dude, you're nuts, that's too complicated, you're way out of there, you're probably getting it, right? Most people who are like loony tinfoil hat conspiracy theorist people have dove into so much information that they see it in a way that is unlike anybody else could ever possibly see it, right? It's one of the reasons why they sound so nuts. And I mean, that's one of the reasons why I even got out of like watching and diving into all that stuff, is because I can't do anything about that. I can't change the way the New World Order is conducting themselves. Right? The only thing I could do is vote with my money and where it goes. Right? And try to understand what it is that the monetary policy is going to do, because that's the most impactful thing to my life. It's the most impactful thing to everybody's life. 12 people, 12 members of the FOMC who vote on monetary policy, with the 5 alternates and 2, I forget, I don't know, like contributors to it, right? These handful of people, less than 20 people, are in so much control of every single individual life on this planet. It is scary to think about. But yet, people want to like look at other things that are really important, but don't have nearly as much impact as those 12 voting members of the FOMC have. Right? All right, moving on here. This system is ridiculous. The market needs to crash like last year. The dollar is dead, and ero- embody trading monopoly money, and no one is worried about that. Well, first of all, I don't feel that the dollar is dead. I mean, I understand that a lot of other people do, but when I look out there and I see how all these nations and people and corporations are writing dollar denominated debts, which are going to strengthen the dollar over time, and if there is no way of figuring out how it is that the United States and the Federal Reserve can get those dollars out there to the rest of the world, then we're going to start finding that there is going to be a dollar crisis as that debt begins to collapse. And that's going to be scarier than anybody else could ever imagine. It's going to cause the dollar to strengthen unlike anything anybody had ever seen. The dollar isn't dead. Literally one of the strongest currencies in the world. Not literally. I mean, it is I want to own everything and be happy. See, like, I don't want to own anything. I just want to be happy. And like, I don't really have any desire to own anything. People have all these, don't you want all this stuff? And I'm like, no. I want steak, I want a view, and I want live music. That's what I want. Like, there's that type of stuff, like money doesn't really like help, I mean, it does help a little bit, but not really, you know? So the stuff that I want, money doesn't buy, I mean, it doesn't, I mean, a little bit of money it takes, but not that much, So, like, being happy for me doesn't take much. I don't need all that stuff, I guess traveling would be cool. That takes money, so I'd like to do that a little bit more. And I guess that kind of, I'm limited, on by not having money. But other than that, there's really the things that make me happy. Money doesn't do it at all. Like, I don't even know what I would do with money to make me happy. Like, I mean, I would, like, I pay my bills on time. That makes me happy. Okay, now what? I don't know. Nothing. All right. Hi from Argentina. What is your opinion on the banking glut, excess of international savings going to treasury bills, making the real interest rate not high enough to cool the economy? Huh. See, now there's somebody who's thinking, right? See, everybody else is thinking about the treasuries getting dumped around the world, and this one is thinking, no, look at the demand for it. It should be less demand for it, causing the prices to go down and the yields to go up, making the interest rates ever higher. See, now this is somebody who's asking the right questions. How come it isn't more this way? Right. Like, yeah, I asked that myself. It was just like, it's because there's a huge demand for U.S. Treasuries, unlike any other debt out there. Okay? It's like the safe and liquid asset of the U.S. Treasury is what gets used for doing transactions around the world. See, it's all priced out in dollars, but they don't really use dollars to do transactions, right? They use U.S. Treasuries. U.S. Treasuries is what's used to do transactions. If you have a slowdown in global activity, the economy is slowing down, then you have a slowdown in transactions. You don't have a need as much for those U.S. Treasuries. So you could see how a global demand for it could slow down from an economy that is slowing down. But ultimately, when you have that happening, you have something that is going to actually combat that in the opposite direction, as people are losing their mind thinking, man, where do I go with my money? I'm worried about my sovereign country. I'm worried about putting it into, stocks or real estate or something like that. The only two positions that you can really go to is the safe haven asset of the US dollar or US treasuries, or you move into gold, right? Now you see these two rising together. Who came up with that idea? Brent Johnson, Jeff Snyder, thank you guys, right? They said this stuff years and years and years ago. I mean, before it even was happening, they were like, man, this is a possibility that could come, guys. And I listened to that and I thought, man, your guys' theories, those theories that those two dudes have are top notch. Like they say stuff unlike anybody else talks about, right? And when you hear them, it sounds so contradictory to what everybody else would believe about what the dollar is doing and what's happening to the dollar, that once you get it and they break it down, they give you the evidence. They're like, here, look at this. Look at how much dollar-denominated debt exists out there in the world and how this debt is actually used to do transactions. It's done in dollars. but it doesn't have anything to do with the United States. We didn't print the money. We didn't print the contract. We don't have anything to do with it, but they're using it for global transactions, and it's all done in dollars. Oh man, it just blows you away to try and even think. It makes your head like want to explode on how vast that could really be. And if all that stuff starts to collapse, you know how much that's going to strengthen the dollar? Like every one of those contracts starts to come due, they need to find dollars in order to pay those contracts. And if they can't find them, it collapses, the dollar strengthens, because this is a dollar that's getting removed from the global transactions. That contract that was priced in dollars didn't have anything to do with dollars, right? Except for being priced in it. When that disappears, whether it was defaulted on or paid off, that removes currency from the global transactions. It's scary to think about how big this really is. That's why all these people were like, oh, the BRICS are going to take over. Like, what? No, they're not. They're not. You know, now they can if there was a total collapse of the dollar, right? Like total, like gone, like nobody has, and people say that's coming. I don't see it. I don't see it coming. Like they can say it all they want. It doesn't make it real. You know. All right. Do we have? Yes, we do. Brody, thank you so much for signing back up for the membership. We'll be out here tomorrow evening to break down Michelle Bowman's speech, the most recent one. She gave it this morning, so it's very relevant information. All right, they have the economy exactly where they want it. They do. This is exactly, I mean, you think about it. They want low and stable prices. See, this is the thing. She actually addresses almost everything. Like she even goes into Basel III in this speech, right? The end game where, you know, the regulatory systems for the banking globally to be all like, you know, in the same position, but there's certain like positions in which that they want these banks that are just not going to be adequate for the United States. And this is what they're saying. It's just like, now we need to have like, you know, we need to be able to customize this, right? To be able to, I forget the word that she used for it, tailor. It needs to be able to be tailored for our different types of banking systems that we have within our country. You know, she was basically saying like, if you're some tech company or tech bank out in California, you know, dealing with the tech companies, you're not having the same products or position that somebody who's in the Midwest trying to deal with a bunch of farmers. Like these two banks are not doing the same things, and so we can't like give these two the same regulatory like conditions to be in, because it just wouldn't work. So what she is saying is that this needs to be tailored if we're going to be part of this Basel III endgame thing, which is really interesting to think about. But it's like super boring and whatever. But again, this is one of the speeches that we cover. But she talked about like, what else did she cover in this speech? Oh, here, see, this is one. You guys are going to really want to be part of this live stream. She even talked about the housing market in there, and then addressed how immigration, right, is going to be, how it comes into different geographical areas. But this increase in immigration starts putting the pressure on rents, right? Rents increases, and then what happens to real estate? Same thing, right? So she is even addressing this particular, condition that is now happening within the economy, and talks about like, what it is. Like if the Federal Reserve is addressing it, then they're thinking about it and they're considering that as part of their monetary policy. And again, like, to think that they're not doing anything about it or seeing it or saying it is inaccurate, right? Like completely inaccurate. The Federal Reserve was looking for low and stable prices with not at 2% target, but moderately above 2%, which I don't know what moderately above 2% is, since they don't define it. Could be 2.2, 2.8, 3.1, who knows, right? Nobody knows what moderately above 2% is. But kind of seeing some of the numbers out there right now, their numbers, because I don't really trust them, but their numbers are seemingly to be moderately above 2%. Just saying, like, that seems to be the appropriate monetary policy. So why it is that they would screw with that when it seems to be right where they want it is beyond me. Like, they've achieved that part of the goal. And we have historically low unemployment. Although it is rising some, it is still incredibly low, historic-wise. like, where is it that the Federal Reserve is screwing up? It seems to me that they have achieved their dual mandate of low and stable prices, moderately above 2%, whatever that means, right? But they've achieved that part of their goal and they have low unemployment. Okay, well, like, why? That's that. Like, people are like, they're screwed up. What are they going to do? They don't know what to do. And I'm like, what do you mean they don't know what to do? They did it. They're doing it right now. Right? And everybody was like, man, what are they going to do? And I'm like, this is what they're doing, you know. All right, guys, what have we got? Okay, I got like maybe 5 more minutes. We got 191 people who have hit the like button with 532 people watching right now. Dang, I wish I could stay out here for longer with this many people watching. I know we got a good comment section going. All right, is unemployment really low, or are the jobs all just part-time? Probably it doesn't really matter. Even if they were full-time jobs, even good jobs suck now. Before, even a full-time good manufacturing job that was in there would have been enough to participate in the economy with the purchasing of houses and cars and vacation and retirement and all that other stuff. It doesn't do it anymore. So even like the idea that there's good jobs out there, it doesn't really help, It's not like it really benefits to the economy any. So if the jobs are like, even if they were full-time or part-time or just, something different from what the unemployment numbers are saying or what the Fed is saying about the workforce, it doesn't really matter. We know from the condition of things now that there's this obvious separation between the rich and the poor happening. And even if you have a good job, one of the good manufacturing jobs or whatever you want to call it from back in the day, it's still not enough to cut it. So the separation is going to continue even if they were to create a bunch of good manufacturing jobs, because good jobs still suck. Right? There's still like not enough to do it. You need good jobs, 2 of them, people working hard, side hustles, all kinds of stuff in order to be able to be in a position in which that you can actually save enough to be able to make the payments on one of these expensive homes. Like, it's almost impossible now, right? You go and you rent, trying to rent during a time of saving, when you're saving, right? So you're renting, saving, but the impossible problem with it is that the rent's so much and the cost of living is so much, you don't have any position to save. And now with the interest rates elevated and the price of the home elevated, the only way that you can actually make the payment on these houses is to put an ever increasingly bigger down payment on it that you can't achieve because you can't save because the rent's so damn high, right? So there's no position in which that the shrinking of the inequality takes place. It only grows worse. And this is over time, whether you want to look back over 10 years, 20 years, 50 years, 100 years, this is the way it's going to go until the inevitable complete collapse of the system. So like all the idea of like trying to figure out what it is that we need to do to try and bring like a better condition back to the United States or back to the economy doesn't happen. Like, it's not going to go that way. Like, I don't care who you vote for, what do you think can happen out there. There's no way that good jobs, manufacturing jobs, come back to the United States in a meaningful way. And even if they did, there's sucky jobs that don't provide you with a living that is going to be like one that you can actually start a family and own a home and all that other stuff. It just doesn't exist anymore. Right? So it's unfortunate, but it's better to understand it for the reality of what it is. That way you can do something about it. But to be hopeful that there's going to be like, a new president or a new administration or a new concept or a new currency or something that's going to come in and save the day. Nope, it doesn't happen. It doesn't work like that. All righty, we got another one joined. Seed, thank you very much for joining the membership. You're going to really enjoy tomorrow's live stream. All right. Let me cruise down here. What time is it? All right, man, I got about 5 minutes. All right. Simon, do you still work on retail? Yeah, I still work retail, you bet. Like, it's funny. Working retail has probably gave me a better insight into understanding what's going on within the economy than just about anything else I've ever done. You have to understand macroeconomics. You have to understand a lot of these forces. But even understanding a lot of the macroeconomic forces and theories and things like that, listening to a lot of people giving lectures and stuff, you go to the economy, you have to be like at the store making purchases. You have to be at the restaurant eating food. You have to be on the street watching the traffic. You have to be everywhere vigilantly, constantly looking. Hey, Mike, what's happening? Doing well, bud. And so, you have to do all these things in order to see the economy. Otherwise, you're stuck listening to the news and what the news is presenting to you. And you can look at data, like, there's some like data that comes out, monthly or weekly or whatever it is that you're keeping your eye on as far as your indicators go. You can look at that data, but nothing, absolutely nothing gives you any kind of real-time data like working it yourself. When I'm working a retail job, right? I'm bringing people up at the till. I'm having the conversations with them. I'm seeing how many phone calls are coming in looking for bids. I know what's going on with the vendors and how they're communicating about what's going on at the other retail outlets. I'm in a constant stream of information that is coming in that is not available anywhere. And most people have this information at their day job. They don't even recognize it. They don't even realize it. They're like, man, I drive truck. I don't have anything like that. You're wrong, man. You have the ability to now communicate with so many other people out there who have real-time information. You just got to ask the right questions. When I'm on the phone with my vendor and I say, hey, man, can I get a unit of this? And he says, no, they're not available. I'm like, why? Why are they not available? Like, are you having trouble getting sourced, or you just have somebody just buy you out this week? I mean, why is that not there? Right? I want to know. And I'm not like grilling them like, dude, tell me. I'm just like, oh, that's curious. And now tell me more about this. Why? Why is it not there? And then start hearing, more about the information. It's like, well, you're out. And then I call another guy, you're out? You're out? Uh-huh. Seems to be a trend going on here. It wasn't exactly the same or in line, but it seems to be these, I'm piecing information together all day long like that. And I would never be able to do that if I didn't have my retail job. Like, I wouldn't be like, it would just be gone. It would just, nowhere would I be able to find that information out at all. And so it's almost critical to understanding macroeconomics in the fashion that I do to actually have a job. And the more of a regular day job it is, the more telling and more current that information is. People don't realize it. The person who is at the very end of the line, the person who's probably sweeping the floors, probably has more macro information available to them than the CEO of that company does. They just don't realize it. They just don't know it. And it's because they don't see it. They don't know what to look for. They don't know what the questions to ask, and they don't know what it is that they're observing. Like, it could be right there presented right in front of them, and they'd be like, they don't know what they're looking at, right? And therefore they can't see it. This, I believe, is the case for the majority of the people out there, especially if you're working a 9-to-5er. If you're working a 9-to-5 job, you probably have more real-time, realistic, accurate information about the economy than most CEOs and most bankers do. And I'm not kidding about that. That's one of the reasons why this channel was as popular as it was, is because of the real-time lumber information that I had, and that hedge funds and investment firms and all kinds of people were like, whoa, man, this guy is ahead of it. How? Well, it's because I'm in a position in which I can call vendors. I can call mills. I know loggers. I know truck drivers. I know these people that I could call up and say, hey, man, give me some information. And I start piecing this together. I can come up with a pretty accurate story to tell. Most people can't get that information like that. There's nowhere to go. You can't go onto the internet and plug in, hey, what are you seeing up there in the hills this week? Right? Like, I mean, you have to know people. That's it. All right, what time is it? Okay, guys, I'm going to have to cut it short here. Not cut it short. We're 38 minutes into this live stream with 39 people watching. I would love to stay out here and keep talking and hanging out, because this is always so much fun to try and have a conversation and to try and answer these questions that are pretty complicated for a lot of people. Sometimes they just need to hear it one more time in a different fashion in order to, kind of seal it in there to understand what it is that's going on. But I appreciate you all being here, and I appreciate everybody who signed up for the channel to be, part of that members only. That's the only way to really truly understand and to internalize this stuff, is to go and break down the Fed's speeches on monetary policy itself, because everybody, literally everybody else, has got it wrong. Like 99.9% of the articles I read out there are inaccurate when it comes to what it is that they are predicting from the Federal Reserve. They just don't get it. They literally don't get it. And I don't know if it's deliberate. It seems to be. I think it's deliberate in a sense that without the propaganda of the mainstream media, then they would never be able to conduct the monetary policy through the credible threats, through that, forward guidance application that they do. They would never be able to do it if they didn't have that propaganda going like they do right now. So I understand that there's two communications taking place, right? The one that goes out through the mainstream media, and then the one that they do with the other bankers, which is these speeches that we break down in the live streams, the member-only live streams. So, alrighty, guys, you've been awesome. It's been a great live stream. 500 people watching with 255 likes. Go hit that like button and have a great day. Uneducated Economist, you let me know.